Remember, you can always download the Lombardi Line in podcast form wherever you get your podcast. We closed out the hour with Chris the Mad Dog Russo joining us on set, and he talked about, so the first Super Bowl he went to was 90, but he said the first media row he went to was 1993. We were just talking in the commercial break. I said, how many people were there? He told me 8 radio stations. That's all. That's all that media row was the first time that they put this together, and look at what it has become.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Yeah, well, I mean, look, the sport just continues to grow. We haven't even touched on this. I mean, I was staggered yesterday, just completely staggered, that we will have a game in Brazil. I mean, everybody keeps saying, oh, my God, there's a game in Vegas. Did you ever think this was going to happen? And then, like, could you have ever thought we're going to Brazil? I mean, think about that. The Eagles are going to open up the season on a Friday night in Brazil. That just staggered me. Like, I didn't even think Brazil was into football. I know they're into soccer, but that's just the power of this league. It's just the ability how this game continues to grow, what Goodell and the owners have done to grow the game. And people say, well, it lines their pockets. No, it lines everybody's pockets. The players benefit from this, too, because as this sport grows, that's why I don't understand all the resentment towards Taylor Swift and the Swifties and all that, because they're helping us grow the game. Yeah. You know, it's like what Brent did with the NFL Today in 75, what Howard Cosell did in 71, what Madden did. Those things grow the game, and that's what helps all of us.
Well, and it's interesting because people, you know, from back in the day talk so much about how maybe the product of the game isn't as good anymore, yet we're having audience numbers like we've never seen and ratings that are unbelievable. And so there are a lot of changes that are for the better as well. You know what cracks me up is when they say, people have this mentality, well, you know, the NFL wants the Chiefs and the 49ers. They don't want a small market. There is no small market in the NFL. There is no small market. I mean, it's the NFL. It's the NFL, and people watch and people will bet the games because it's good, and we have the ability to do so, and it works. And I think, to me, it's kind of, we haven't changed our thinking about, well, it's, you know, they don't want small. No, it's not. This league is global. Yeah. It really is global. And we're going to have teams in London at some point in the next 10 years, and I think we're going to have a team in Germany. Oh, see, like that's crazy to think about, that's really possible, that we would have NFL teams versus just playing there, but actually being based there. But obviously, the reason that the game is being played in Brazil, trying to continue to expand international play, but the stadium in Mexico City is having to have their renovations, so the NFL can't go there temporarily for the next couple of years. But London, Germany, all these different things. And to further the international point, we talk about the way that Media Row has grown from those 8 radio stations to now there are over 6,000 credentialed media here from 26 different countries. So this is not just a U.S. thing anymore by any means. No, and I do sometimes I'll do radio in Australia, in Melbourne, and I've become friends with 2 of the hosts, Gary Lyons and Tim Watson, and they're both from the Australian Rules Football League. They both were great players in their league, and that station sent their guys up here. Now, Tim and Gary didn't come because they're still on their summer vacation, and that league doesn't start until next week. So, but that's how popular the game is. When I was in Australia, you know, doing my consulting thing for the Essendon team, they basically watch NFL football on Monday morning. They're all at their computers. They all watch, and they can't wait. It's just, this game's going to continue to grow. And with players like Mahomes and Allen, Lamar, and all the stars that keep coming, and the way college has kind of given us a lot more quarterbacks that can play, it's going to keep growing. Yeah, it's awesome. You love to see it. Again, we are less than a week away from Super Bowl 58 kicking off from here in Las Vegas. The 49ers remain a 2-point favorite, total 47.5. We'll continue to preview the game at length. We've got some rushing props that we're going to look at in a little bit. Also this hour, comedian and actor Frank Caliendo is going to join us on the set. Cannot wait to hear what his maybe 49ers pump-up speech would be, but it's Charles Barkley and not Frank Caliendo. We'll see where we go there. But there is a lot of other news and notes that's still coming around in the NFL that we haven't had an opportunity to touch on yet, including that the Giants have landed their new defensive coordinator with Wink Martindale no longer there. Shane Bowen, former Tennessee Titans DC, will step into that role. Yeah, well, it's going to be an interesting hire there because
The Tennessee Titans last year defensively they couldn't really put pressure on. They had a hard time stopping the run. Their back end was really poor. They couldn't cover anybody. They tried to play a lot of cover 7, quarters coverage, whereas Martindale was blitzing and attacking the pocket. So it's going to be a shift. We'll see how this all works out, right? I think, to me, this is a big year for Brian Daboll and the Giants. I mean, Mike Kafka tried to get the Seattle offensive coordinator job. They blocked him from going. So this is going to be a big year for the New York Football Giants. Can Daniel Jones come to become the player that the Giants think he is, not the player that I think he is? And so they're going to have to win next year. I think, that playoff run that they made year 1 kind of went away with the way the season went in year 2. They made a lot of coaching changes on that staff.
You know what's funny about you bringing up Daniel Jones? To me, I was talking to my brother about this yesterday, like all the talk about Brock Purdy and how it feels like he's being judged for a career that's like 6 years long that he just hasn't had yet. And you where he had one good year and then all the rest of the sample size has been bad. Even though with Brock Purdy, all we've seen is positive things. They judge him as if he's Daniel Jones.
But Daniel Jones never has thrown for over 7 yards per attempt in his career.
And Purdy had 9.6 in the regular season.
There's not even a comparison between the two players. Like, one guy is deadly accurate with the football. Now, Daniel Jones has made some plays and run around. Daniel Jones' best game was his rookie year when he played against Tampa down there. That's one of his finest games. And so, look, the Giants have all the faith in the world in Daniel Jones. That's their whole thing. They believe in him. They paid him this contract. And when I said it at the time on the podcast, and when I was out here with you doing shows, I said the problem their team's going to run into is they've got the disease of me. Everybody's going to want to get paid, and nobody's going to want to understand why Daniel Jones got the bite of the apple first and no one else did. And then what has come out? All the players are complaining that Daniel Jones got the bite of the apple and they didn't. So, to me, you have to be really careful who you pay, and they chose to pay him.
Yeah, the $40 million man. Meanwhile, another offseason where we're trying to figure out what's going to happen with Saquon Barkley after everything that happened last year.
Yeah, and I can't buy, that the rumor out there that Jim Harbaugh is going to want to have Saquon Barkley. First of all, they have cap issues at the Chargers. Yeah, they already do. So them spending money on a running back doesn't make a lot of sense. I think, would Jim Harbaugh draft a running back? Oh, there's no question he would. But to me, to pay for a running back, I don't think so. And so that running back market, we listened to all those tiers this past offseason. Oh, we're not getting paid. We're not getting paid. Well, Pacheco's a 7th rounder, right? He beats out Edwards-Helaire. Eckler did not have the same year that he had this year. It's just fact. Tony Pollard is going to be a free agent. There's no way Dallas is going to franchise him again. He didn't have the same year. So I think all this crying and all this tears that the national media allowed the running back committee to play on, it doesn't change the landscape of the NFL. Nobody's going to buy for running backs. Nobody wants to. Even though Le'Veon Bell's making a comeback. Think about it.
Like, get out of here with that. But yeah, and to tie everything back to the Super Bowl once again, how cool is it that two of the most important pieces of this game are 7th-round picks in Isaiah Pacheco and Brock Purdy? Just awesome storylines, I think, in this one. Also, we saw former Patriots OC and newly hired Ohio State offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien, according to Rich Thompson of the Boston Herald, is the frontrunner for the Boston College head coaching job with a potential announcement as early as Wednesday. He's reporting that the contract talks are already down to the minor details and that the program would make a significant financial commitment to him. And he just got hired as offensive coordinator at Ohio State January 19th.
Yeah, and I believe he's still getting paid by the Houston Texans. And so, he left Alabama to come to New England. No, I'm sorry, he's still getting paid by the Patriots. So he has more years on his contract with the Patriots than he does, and so he's going to go back in there. Look, he's a Boston guy, and Boston College either needs to step up and really try to compete in football in the ACC, or they need to stand down. They got a choice, and I think Jeff Hafley leaving that job to go to pro football was a cold dose of reality for the program. You don't usually leave a head coaching job for the pros if you have a really good head coaching job, right? And so they're going to have to get involved with NIL. Look, it's a great school, and it's a beautiful campus, and it has a great stadium. But they just haven't been able to turn that corner in terms of really making the commitment they need to make. And if O'Brien goes there, look, he was successful at Penn State. He did win there in college, so you can't dismiss that as as him being able to. Plus, he's a hometown guy.
Yeah. Family still lives there.
It's either now or never, and I think that's going to be interesting to see what they do.
I think of it more like if he goes there, then what happens with Ohio State? Because for as good as the win percentage is for Ryan Day, this is a very important year, I feel like, for him in the program, in the transition, the way that the Big Ten is expanding. Like, this is a huge year for him, and now you're going to be put in a situation where you thought that you had your guy at offensive coordinator, and now you got to start over.
Well, I mean, look, Ryan Day's still going to run the offense, right? So he's still going to run that offense, and I think, to me, when you look at the payroll at Ohio State, they may compete with some of the teams in the NFL in terms of the money that they're going to invest in that program. It is Ohio State raised the bar. They doubled down. They're not going to settle for a 10-2 year. They're going to settle for either we're in the national championship game or we're going to find ourselves another coach. That program is serious, and they put serious money into this. And, you know, if you're Ryan Day, you kind of hired Bill O'Brien to help you kind of navigate the tough landscape that lies ahead. He's going to have to figure that out.
Yeah, no question. Now, though, with Jim Harbaugh out of the Big Ten, maybe Ryan Day's feeling a little bit better from that standpoint, but you got some new teams from the Pac-12 and things continuing to grow and the landscape of college football changing, it feels like, on an everyday basis. We're going to hit the first break here of hour 2, but when we come back, diving into Super Bowl 58 rushing props, we know that Michael likes CMC in the receiving game. What about this rushing number? We'll be right back. Hi from Media Row. This is the Lombardi Line. This segment brought to you by Bayer Aspirin, the official sponsor of Fans' Hearts. Michael Lombardi and Stormy Bonantoni with you. And we were just talking before we hit the break about Bill O'Brien and how he might potentially take the Boston College head coaching job. And it got me thinking, especially because we are in the city of Las Vegas, you know who this type of thing happens to, where you get a job and then you leave within a couple of weeks? I feel like that happens to UNLV all the time. Like, you think about even 2 years ago, Bobby Petrino takes the job.
Last year, he just left and went to Texas A&M. Yeah. I mean, and you know, I mean, that's kind of the way they've set up college football now, is because there's certain jobs that can't reach the level that these other jobs can. There's the have and the have-nots. And so coaches are going to be like players. They're going to be on the same trajectory. If they get another job with more money, with a better chance to win, they're going to take advantage of it. And I think Barry Odom's done a tremendous job here at UNLV. He really has. And he's going to have to continue down that path. But one of the things you'll do at these kind of programs is you have to train coaches. Because you're constantly going to lose coaches. So you can't sit back there and say, we're going to hire Coach Y and let him run the offense, or Coach Z and let him run the defense, because that's just never going to work. You're going to lose those coaches. And I think you'll see some of the programs in college football that have done that. You know, if the head coach doesn't install the philosophy and the belief within the system, then it's going to be constantly subjective to who we hire.
Yeah, so ultimately it did still work out, at least in year 1 under Barry Odom. They had a 10-win season, which for UNLV was the best season that they had had since Randall Cunningham was their quarterback, by the way. So it had been a while since UNLV football had success. Yeah, there you go.
I think, I went to the 49ers by then, but we had Randall there, and Randall did an amazing job. So. Well,
and I think about UNLV too, like Chris Beard, the same thing happened in basketball. He took the head coaching job for hoops, and then a couple weeks later he goes to Texas Tech, and you're just like, they just can't catch a break. Anyways, though, we can talk Super Bowl because it is Super Bowl week. I just had Vegas on the brain, as per usual. And earlier in the show, we looked at some of the different receiving prop options. I want to do the same exercise here with the running backs and rushing yards props. So bet it or regret it is kind of the theme that we're going to do here. And we're going to start with Christian McCaffrey, who has a high prop. 89.5 yards is where his rushing prop sits at, 18.5 attempts. Bet the over or regret it?
I think I lean more to the attempts. I really do. I'm not saying he's not going to have a big run, because we know the weakness of this Chief team. They're 25th EPA in against the run, even though the Baltimore Ravens decided not to run the football for some strange reason. We don't know. There'll be a 30 for 30 documentary on that at some point, right? We're going to have to get into that. I kind of believe that, you know, Kyle's going to have a plan for this. And I really think McCaffrey is going to, look, when you're playing in the biggest game, you don't want to lose the game saying, I should have got the ball more to my best players, right? You want to say, when you go home and you lose the game, you want to say they, A, were better than we were, or B, you know, their best was better than our best. And I think Kyle's smart enough to know that.
And he was, of course, the NFL's rushing leader this year. He 1,459 yards in the regular season. He scored a touchdown in all 6 playoff games he's played. He's obviously had 2 rushing touchdowns each of the last 2 games. And you also liked his over in the receiving yards prop when we did that earlier.
Even though that number's coming down, I just think, to me, where he gains, see, the one thing I think about McCaffrey that no one really understands, if McCaffrey is the lead runner, if he's your offense like he was in Carolina, you're not going to be good enough. He's like that luxury piece that adds and infuses everyone else's game.
So it's like he can get free because of all of the other things
right,
that are
but
around
if you just can't go in the game like they had in Carolina, where we're going to give the ball to Christian, because they can take him out of the game. But his multiplicity of positions allows him to be so effective. Mm-hmm. He can be a slot receiver. He can be a runner from the backfield. He can run routes like an outside receiver. And it just complements it. So he really enhances this offensive, and the players around him enhance his game. I'm not trying to dispel his greatness, because he's a great player. But when he is the focal point of your offense, and he's the main guy, it's a different offense. When he's a luxury item in the offense, all of a sudden he looks like, oh my gosh, right? And so I think that's why he's the perfect fit here. You know, it adds the value to what they do. It's like Deebo. People talk about Deebo, and we'll get to his rushing attempts here in a second, but Deebo is an outstanding inside receiver with motion and all. If Deebo has to play X or Z outside all the time, that's not his game. Mm-hmm. And so his game is inside. Why is Kyle so effective with him? Because he throws the ball inside the numbers. It fits. This is really when you know you're a good team, is when the style of the player matches the style of the offense or the defense.
Before we move off CMC too much, I do want to remind people that every day this week, there is going to be a DraftKings boost coming out for a different Super Bowl bet on Gojo and Golic. It's going to be released at 5 p.m. Eastern. It's called the Happy Hour Super Boost. Yesterday,
it was a happy hour. There you go.
Who doesn't? Yeah. And we're in Vegas. If I was born in this city, what do you expect from me? But yesterday's Super Boost was Christian McCaffrey to have 30-plus yards in both the first half and the second half. It went from, I believe it was like a minus 140 proposition that she ended up getting plus 130. So there's going to be different things like that every single day on Gojo and Golic, released again at 5 o'clock Eastern every single day. So make sure you continue to check that out and take advantage of some of those great options. CMC, by the way, as it pertains to the rushing yards number, 98 against Green Bay, 90 against the Lions, and he's at 93 plus in 8 of the last 10 games overall, including 4 that went over 100. But let's go to Deebo. He's got 14.5 is his rushing yards number. He had 7 yards against the Lions, none versus Green Bay, but of course he only played 9 snaps in that one. And we remember all too well when they tried to line up Juwan Jennings as Deebo to run the ball with that miscommunication. That didn't go great.
You know, but that's where because they move pieces around on the chessboard like Kyle does. Yeah. And because Spagnuolo wants to blitz certain guys, it forces him to have to change how he really wants to set it up, you know. And so if I'm blitzing and I've got Deebo and I'm not the blitzer and Deebo's in the backfield, and then how do I adjust that? What do I do? By just moving them back there in the backfield. Look, this is the all-time leader in kickoff returns in high school at South Carolina. And this is a guy who is just really deadly with the football in his hands. He can break tackles. He gets yards after the catch. He turns a 5-yard pass into a 50-yard gain. He runs angry. You know, some of the runs he made against Detroit, where Detroit was poorly tackling in the open field, and he made those plays. I don't know how you can not go over his total in terms of the rushing prop, because I do think it's going to be, if you take Deebo and swap him out with McCaffrey and just switch them, Deebo in the backfield, McCaffrey in the slot, and now Spagnuolo is going to have to adjust what he wants to do. You know, he's just going to be, well, I'm going to take the guy who's covering Deebo and put him on CMC, and I'm just going to leave the other way. And that's a different matchup, because when you have Deebo in the slot, you got to cover him, right? You have to say who can cover him. But the bigger question is who can tackle him. You know, who can tackle him?
He's slippery.
He's slippery. And so everybody worries about who's going to tackle him, but who's going to cover him, but who's going to tackle him? Yeah. Who gets him on the ground? You can't have a little corner try to tackle him.
How about the quarterbacks? Would you rather Brock Purdy over 12.5 rushing yards or Patrick Mahomes over 25.5?
I think Mahomes will run the football more. I think he'll take off. He extends plays. He always does. You know, and he doesn't mind doing it. I think both are really good plays. Okay. I would lean Mahomes, but I think what Spagnuolo's worried about and I'm sure he's coaching his players up on it specifically this week, is we got to control him in the pocket. Like, this isn't Jared Goff who's going to stay back there and move side to side. This is a kid who's going to take off, and he's got great pocket presence to him. He'll run with it if he has to run with it.
Yeah, Spags talked about it in his media availability this week, how athletic Brock Purdy truly is, and it's gone a little bit under the radar, and obviously used his legs very well in this past game. I liked actually the 3.5 rushing attempts for Purdy because it was a plus 130 option. He's had 5 and 6 carries in each of the playoff games here so far, and I could easily see him getting 4 in this spot.
Yeah.
What about Isaiah Pacheco? Everybody talks about this being the Pacheco game for KC.
It's got to be. Look, the attempts at 15.5. He's averaged 21 attempts in these 3 playoff games. So that seems like that's an enticing number. You got to believe they're going to try. I mean, look, here's what I will say. For all the conversation at Mahomes, and we heard what Christopher Russo talked about, this game is going to come down to the style of play which has gotten Kansas City here, which is run the football, which is balance, keep their offensive line, play from in front. And this Pacheco kid has been outstanding. I mean, there's times when I'm watching the tape, I feel like he's back. It's Tyreek Hill's return. And he's dynamic. He's very good in the passing game, and he runs angry. I mean, this is a kid who runs angry, and you need that.
And I think I said this not on our program, but when we joined Gojo and Golick later on in the afternoon, I love a rushing prop on Isaiah Pacheco for him specifically to have a rushing touchdown.
Yeah.
His anytime touchdown is around a minus 125, minus 130 price, but you can get plus 115 on him specifically to have a rushing touchdown. He's had one in 4 straight playoff games in the 7 games that he's had this crazy touchdown streak of scoring 8 touchdowns in 7 games. 7 of them have been on the ground.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's very reasonable.
Add another layer to it. The Niners gave up 10 touchdowns all year on the ground. They've given up 5 in the playoffs.
Yep. Throw it in there.
Their short yardage run defense in the goal line has been very, very soft.
And we love that plus money honey. Now, I hope that it's only 1, and I hope that that's the only touchdown that the 49ers allow all day.
Yes.
But neither here nor there.
I love how you can have 2 contrasting ideas in your brain perfectly working. I love that.
Sometimes.
Who said that, too? There was a girl, Scott Fitzgerald said that. That's right.
DraftKings official flowers for Valentine's, although I do think this group of flowers, as beautiful as they are, is giving off a little too much Kansas City Chiefs energy. I need the gold to be more prominent for the Niners. Welcome back to our desk. You see we have an awesome guest here, Frank Caliendo, comedian, actor, impressionist extraordinaire. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, great to be here. Tremendous.
Did you bring everybody with you?
Oh, yeah, it's always. Everybody's, the Rolodex is ready to go.
Are you ready to fire away?
The magic. Anytime he ever texts me, I send him something, or he sends, thanks, John.
I love that.
He gives me the old school Pat Summerall.
Yeah, I love it.
I could even bring up Pat Summerall to 90% of people. Right? Oh, football fans, I could.
Right.
But, like.
You don't think nobody knows Pat Summerall outside the football world?
Not if they stop playing Madden.
I guess you're right.
He wasn't even in the Madden video game,
I think.
It
shows you how old I am. That's horrible.
Madden 95, Madden 92, to the 20, to the 25. There's a flag on the play.
I know that they don't know he was a kicker in the league and he played in the NFL. I get that, but the voice is just so magnetic.
Well, could you even do that I don't think the broadcaster would be allowed to talk as little in the way Pat Summerall did with just phrases. Like somebody going down the field, they're going to want you to describe a lot more. They're paying you a lot of money.
Yeah.
Not that those guys weren't getting paid, but to the 20, to the 25. Touchdown. Like, it's
so
understated.
Calm.
Like,
so calm.
Yeah, it's like nothing. I mean, it makes Nance seem like he's over the top, right?
Yeah, right.
But,
so you got Barkley's got his own show. He's got the TNT. Is he giving you a lot more material?
I haven't seen much of it yet. So the
Gayle King show with him?
No, I've got to watch more. But it's kind of like life imitating art, because one of my bits was that Charles Barkley's the guy I love because he's always honest, and he gives you even if stuff you don't want to hear in the news. And now he's got that show with Gayle King, and it does seem perfect. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think about is going on, and it's crazy. Like at least he does. I have seen a couple of clips. I haven't watched the show particularly yet, but. At least he does more research on the topics than he does before the NCAA basketball tournament.
Yes,
when he's like, look over there, there's number 25. with the white shoes and the red stripes. No, you got to know who the guy is.
Yes.
Charles. Not really, because nobody else does.
So it is interesting that you mentioned, like, talking about sports people specifically, because we know you and you're so well known for all of the sports impressions that you do, but you talk to a wider audience as well. Is it tough to balance, like, getting other celebrities in addition to sports personalities, or how does that work for you?
In terms of the, doing my act, a show or something, I try to make it much broader now. Now I do all the sports stuff while I'm here. But in terms of a show, I've even talked to comedy clubs about that recently, where they're showing old clips of John Madden to sell tickets for me. And I'm like, people don't know that stuff. Like, and the people who do know already know that I'm coming here. Right. So you got to show them that there's some different stuff. So yeah, it's a fun thing. I do the Madden stuff, and I do the Madden stuff here at the Super Bowl because he's boom. I mean, it's the right place. So. And the other question people are asking me a lot about is, like, am I working on any of the other broadcasters? Here's the thing. A little bit yes and no. But the Romo, which I've talked to you about before, I've just turned Tony Romo into revving up a car. That's all it is. Like, oh, Jim, here we go, Jim. Oh, it's so good.
He's got a good life for doing that, right?
I mean, it's kind of amazing because he went from being Nostradamus to not knowing anything.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
it has been a flip.
He's like, oh, their trip's right. They're going to make it. There's going to be a slant to the left where they're not even looking. The defense isn't ready for that. They're playing partial zone on that side. Here we go, Jim. And now it's like, what's he going to do, Jim? That's exactly what's going to happen. Let's go to Jay Feely. And then Jay Feely's like, I'm a kicker. He's like, oh, it's so good, Jim. Tony. So the energy. Like, what I love about Romo is he's another one, the honesty and he's a kid in a candy store, right? When I watch him or listen to him, I just love, oh, Jim. It's like he's got sweet tarts over here and Three Musketeers right there. There's Juji fruits, and it doesn't get any better than this.
Have you ever done Jim to Jim, or do you have any stories where you've done the impression in front of the person?
Yeah, there's some of those, but actually, Mike was the one who got Jim Nance to call me. So Jim Nance left me a message, and it was Frankie, which I wish he would have said, hello, Frank, Jim Nance.
Hello, friends.
Hello, Frankie. And we talked a little bit about it because they've actually done the bit a little bit. It's weird in sports because sometimes people are put on pedestals their entire lives, especially the former coaches that become announcers or analysts or whatever. It's a harder time. If you're in the club, it's easier for a former coach or somebody. If you played football, they're willing to let you play more with it. I got more known for that kind of stuff, so I think I got a little bit more leeway. But it's an odd thing when you're doing a voice of somebody or breaking stuff down. I think sometimes people get worried it's going to cost them money. I've heard that. They're like, if you do this, it's not going to put me on, it's going to make people make fun. No, it makes it easier for Madison Avenue and the advertisers to write for you. And now you can get more commercials from it. Like Barkley's always said, Frank, keep doing me. Yeah. Because every time you do it, I make more money.
I mean, it's true. I think it's good. How long does it take you to perfect? Like, you got the election coming up, right? So this is going to be big for you. So you got a lot of characters out there.
A lot of voices in your head.
A lot of voices in your head. How long does it take you to go from, I got to do that person, him or her, to, I got it?
Well, I mean, most of the time it's a work in progress, and you got to put it out there before it's ready sometimes. Yeah. So I think that's almost like, if you're going to make the sports analogy, I think it's almost like making reads and trying to figure out what's going to be enough of to sell it to make the point. I don't know. I listened to old John Madden when people thought I was doing John Madden. Hey, folks, John Madden. I was like, what is that? And people thought it was great. So I don't know. If people laugh, then it's good enough. It doesn't have to be dead on. It can just be something that works and makes you think of the person. Yeah. But then now with social media, people will complain that it's, they'll be that.
Well, they complain about anything on social media, so you can't do that. But you, like, the mannerisms that Stormy mentioned this too, is it's not just the voice, it's the way you move and the way you deliver it is so perfect.
Yeah, well, I think that adds to it. I always say that the mouth tells you how they talk and the eyes tell you how they think. So if you're doing the impression of a person, like when I do the Tony Romo, I'm just thinking that smile. He's got that smile on his face, and he's talking out on one side. There it is. Oh, so good. So I think about that. I kind of picture the person, and that's what I see, and I kind of believe that I'm that person putting that out there. And then you can kind of think more in their way of thinking. But some people, there's just voices I can't figure out. and there's lots of them, and you just find a little clip. Or I was talking to somebody talking about Peyton Manning, which I can't do a Peyton Manning, but I can find a word. Weird.
Yeah.
He's got that one. Hey, Eli, that's kind of weird. See how that? But that's all.
Great.
It's like, weird.
You kind of get into it in the way.
3 syllables.
Right.
That weird is 1 syllable, except if you're Peyton Manning. That's weird. Eli, that's kind of weird.
I personally love the Pacino, and so I was wondering if you could get into that and give my 49ers a little bit of a pregame speech, potentially.
We got to fight for every inch of every foot, of every yard, of every, I don't know what comes next in the Kings.
With the
measurement system.
There's so many variations of Pacino. Like, when I see him now, like, he's not Michael Corleone. Like, I don't even know where that came from.
It was way up in the afternoon. He was way up here.
There you go. That's it.
And then he became a Southern general.
Yeah, that's
how
right.
How are we? How we doing?
Yes.
That the whole U.S. Army retired. Frank Slade.
There
Come
it is.
on.
Do you have a favorite voice? I feel like that's got to be hard because you have so many that you can do.
I mean, they're newer, they're more interesting. I mean, that's the thing for me. I have more fun with the comparison of voices. I don't know if I've done that for you before, but the Kermit the Frog is there's Muppets, and because Muppets aren't the actual voice, they're constructed like a cartoon character. Kermit the Frog, hi ho, Kermit the Frog here, right? You got that voice, and then Fozzie Bear is waka waka waka. So that's also, hey, Bert, Ernie. No, those two voices. Those two combined to get you with a Texas accent, Patrick Mahomes.
That's what I was going to ask. I was like, Kermit is kind of...
Well, it's actually in between kind of the two. And when you think about those kind of things that, we're doing everything we can to get out there and just do what we can. And Coach Reed said we're going to make our way through it. And I just hope we do our best. A couple of distractions, we'll figure out a way.
So, Patrick, are you guys going to win the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I don't. We just go out there and play our best.
I don't want to get letters.
How about Jack Nicholson? Do you still get any requests for him?
Just from you, sir.
I was going to say I'm that old.
Well, here's the thing. That's an interesting with somebody because I did a whole morphing,
and then Patrick Mahomes in here, and
if you go down, that becomes the John C. Reilly. Did you touch my drum set? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Put some air in it. It's Mark Ruffalo. I see this as an absolute win. I had no idea he was even going to do that. And then if you bring it down, it becomes Paul Giamatti.
Yeah.
I believe that is one of the craziest things I've ever heard in my entire life. Now, when I do Paul Giamatti, this comes back to what you were saying. People think it's Jack Nicholson, and I have to disagree.
Yeah.
It's slightly different, but somewhat similar.
If you want more of this awesome stuff, by the way, make sure this Saturday you head out to Phoenix Desert Ridge Improv. And can we get maybe a score prediction for you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. Am I running out of time?
You have 11 seconds. Go.
20-0. No. 27-24 Niners.
This segment presented by DiGiorno. It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno DraftKings Super Week. Rolling along here as we continue to be live from Media Row at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas. And I don't know how we're supposed to follow up
I don't know either.
the segment we just had with Frank Caliendo.
It makes me laugh every time. When I was a kid growing up, there used to be a show called Copycats. It was on TV. It had all these impersonators, Rich Little, Frank Gorshin, all these people don't remember. But they were just to make me laugh, and the ability for him to go from Jack Nicholson to Paul Giamatti I thought his Giamatti was incredible. I mean, and I've watched Billions, and I've seen, what's that movie, the wine movie where what was it where he was in the wine movie? I forget that.
I don't think I know.
You never saw that one? That was a good one too. But anyway, he's just an incredibly talented. Sideways, there. Thank you, Stephanie.
Oh, well done, producer Steph.
Thank you,
Clutch.
Stephanie. Sideways. Yeah, it was a good movie, right, Steph?
So I just wish that, and I regret not asking him this, but how do you go from realizing this is a fun party trick with your friends and that you can imitate so-and-so to no, I'm really, really good at this and making a career in life out of it? 'Cause it's been impressive.
He's kind of just came to me. He grew up in Wisconsin. He's a Packer fan. And so he kind of started his career that way, and then he's kind of done it. And I think he's also expanded out because he can act and he does a lot of other things too. This has kind of been his bread and butter for his career, but I'm glad he came up here from Phoenix. He lives down there, and he's got the show this weekend, which I urge everybody to go see because his shows are really funny. I mean, they're really funny, and he's such a talented man.
Desert Ridge Improv out there in Phoenix. Again, make sure you check that out. And again, if you missed the segment, anything with Frank Caliendo, or we had Chris Mad Dog Russo on, the two of them arguing was fantastic. This show, as always, is available in podcast form as well. You and Femi put out a new edition of GM Shuffle yesterday from out here. Thursday, there will be another new one coming up. So good stuff. By the way, Frank's final score prediction, the same as mine, 27-24 49ers.
I know. You know, it's interesting. I'm seeing a lot of people picking the 49ers.
Which is weird.
And nobody's betting the 49ers other than the sharps are. Obviously, the professional people who have power rated the game are betting the 49ers. And that number has ticked from 1.5 up to 2.5 in some shops. It's 2 in DraftKings right now. But for the most part, it's kind of jockeyed. It went to 1.5. I don't think we'll see that again. And it went to 3, which we never saw, but some people did. That was amazing. Anyway, I think to me, what's next will be is that late movement that we're going to see somewhere. And when we do the show Saturday or Sunday, what is that movement going to be? Is it going to be towards the Niners where it does get to 3, or will it be back to the Chiefs where it does go to 1.5? Because I don't think it's going to just stay here at 2. I think there's going to be some late push come in.
Looking at our VSiN.com betting splits page where things sit right now, the Kansas City Chiefs getting 64% of the handle, 68% of bets in terms of the money line, 67% of handle, and nearly 80% of the bets, total tickets coming in on this game. On the straight up winner is with Kansas City at this point. The money line price on San Francisco just -125. If I know you're not betting this game,
right?
But if you were, would you prefer, since you like San Francisco, to lay the 2 or just bet a money line and not risk this landing on a 1 or 2?
Well, I think the money line's feasible. It's a good
price.
Number. It's a good price for you. Almost, if you do like San Francisco, you should play the money line. And I think, to me, when you look at the money line breakdown, they're not getting a lot of money on the money line either. You know, so I think you have to kind of consider that. Look at the handle here. You know, 32% of the bets are on the 49ers and 36% of the handle.
Crazy.
You know, and that's on the line. I think if we dig deeper and go into the betting market, it's fairly similar. And the money line, I think it's still 32. But there we go on the bet and the handle, the money line. Look at it, 23% and 36. So I gotta believe that obviously you're going to get a better price for the Chiefs because they're the dog. But to me, I'm surprised that because the price is so tight, you wouldn't go in that direction.
Yeah, and I feel like if you're a Chiefs backer, you take the points, but if you're a 49ers backer, maybe you just feel a little bit comfortable paying a slightly larger tax at -125 than having to mess around with a -2 in this spot. That's the way I think I would play it, although I'm in a little bit of a different position because being a 49ers fan, you know, for all my teams, like the last handful of years, you just bet that preseason future on the team that you root for. So I've got a futures ticket on San Francisco, I've got my SGT for the game. So that's what I'm really sweating.
I know you don't want to jinx yourself, but will you give yourself a chance to make money on your – because you've had your money tied up on the future ticket for a long time.
I'm riding it out. Because you bet on your team for the hope that they win.
But let's just talk to the audience about this. Let's say it wasn't your team. Let's say you had it on another team that your heart wasn't in. What would you do now to make sure you're guaranteed a profit?
I still think that would be a unique position, too, because it depends on where you sit on the game, right? Like – For most people saying that like they love the Kansas City Chiefs right now in the current form and XYZ, then maybe you've already got a bet on the 49ers. Why not bet the Chiefs at a +2 or a +2.5, whatever number you can get, because they're the underdog anyways.
Right.
So I think that would make a ton of sense, but I just see no need to do that right now. I'm riding out my ticket, and
I know you do.
I love my team.
I know you do.
Hoping for the best.
I know you're letting your heart get in the way, but I think to me there is ways you want to make sure you guaranteed yourself some money. And I think that's something about what people don't understand about the betting market. I think there is conditions that we can meet where you're guaranteed a profit. And I think that you obviously have had this card. You've invested in this in July, or maybe you even did it earlier, you know, and so they've had your money for a long time. Can I get money back? And I think there's a way to do it.
It's what's funny about this all too was last year my San Diego State bet for the national championship. I didn't do it in the preseason. I did it later on in the year, so I didn't get that great of a number. And then I was like, oh, they're not going to get past the Sweet 16. So I was monetizing it, and then they make the freaking national championship. And so now I've just learned that lesson the hard way, that I'm just going to stick with my team and have fun with it and ride it for as long as you can.
I mean, I could see both sides, but I think to me, if you're going to be down this betting world, that's why I think it's so important to buy the guide. It's so important to kind of get yourself vested interested because, you know, for me, I handicap games, I break down football teams, but that world that we were just talking about, how to maximize the profit, is really where I think our network can really help, because I think there's so many people that, like the Matt Humans and the Gil Alexanders and the people that have done this all their lives, you know, Mitch and Paulie, they kind of have a way of understanding the other avenues to guarantee yourself a profit.
I did have a question for you about the second half of this game in particular, because normally throughout the regular season, we don't see a lot of those second half options that are pre-flop available. But because it's Super Bowl, you can bet pretty much anything they are. And we've talked so much about the Kansas City Chiefs second half unders, 18-2 to the under in the second half, 19-1 to the under in the fourth quarter. They've been much more of a first half team than a second half team. Do you think the number's 23.5? And I feel like that's pretty dang on the nose, because typically we see that 24. 24.5.
I think, to me, this is a game about two halves, right? So I think Steve Wilks has got to come out with something different and to start the game. He cannot allow this Chief team, which has scored on opening drives in every playoff game, field goal or touchdown, and they've been very good in the first quarter. He can't allow that. But also, he can't allow what happened to them in 2019, where Mahomes gained 242 yards in the second half against their defense and scored 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and they went from having a 10-point lead to losing by 10.
I was hoping we weren't going to have to talk about that.
I know, but I think, to me, this is a game that needs 2 plans. You need 2 strategies. We need an initial strategy, and then we know Reed is going to adjust to the second strategy. What is our second strategy going to be? It's the great scene in the Super Bowl when Belichick is playing against the Rams, and he goes over to Brian Flores and Brendan Daly, who's now the linebacker coach of the Chiefs, and he goes over to them and says, "Look, fellas, there's about 10 more plays left in this game. Let's go over every single call and make sure we have every call down." Like, that is the strategy that needs to happen if you are the 49ers and you've got the lead. How are we going to change it? Because once Andy Reid gets a read on you, all of a sudden it becomes a little bit of a different game.
Do you think if the Chiefs have a lead at halftime that this is one where the 49ers can't come back?
No, I don't. I think, to me, it just changes. One thing about Kyle, he's not going to change what he does until it becomes a drop-back pass game, until he has to. And that's what made the Dan Campbell decision to not kick. Because if he goes up 17, it's a 3-score game with 22 minutes left to go. And Kyle has to now look at his play sheet and say, okay, I got to throw the ball. I got to drop back pass here. Nobody's going to honor all my play action stuff. I think that's where just looking at numbers can lead you down the wrong road. You've got to play the play sheet and what the game is and what the style of team is. Again, if San Francisco wins, they have to force this Chief team to play outside their comfort zone, which is their style, which has been why they're 4-0 over the last 4 games that they've played. So when you force a team to play outside their style, you become the better team.
49ers all season long were much better when they had success playing from a lead and just maintaining it versus what they've had to do in the playoffs, a comeback win against Green Bay and then a 17-point deficit against the Detroit Lions in the NFC Championship. They ultimately rally back. There is a bet out there that's Chiefs to win the first half, 49ers to win the game, plus 650.
Oh, you're tempted.
And I unfortunately...
You are tempted.
I want to bet it pretty bad.
I know you are.
But I also don't know if I want to reinvest in something that I'm already sweating out as much as possible.
You're going to have to tell Chris not to let you do that.
Chris, take the app away. Take the phone away. That's it for us today out here at Meteor Row, but we'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. Thanks for hanging out with us. Good luck with your bets.